Hello, Cumberland Valley families. I'm excited to provide you with an update about our plans for starting school here this fall. Um, Apologize, it's been a little while since we provided our last update, but we've been very busy. I'm going to explain why here shortly. But we are in a very good position to start school here in the fall. So one of the big things that we're doing right now is we actually going to move the start of school back to August 31st. We're going to ask the board to do that on Monday night to update the calendar. And we were confident we'd be able to start on the 25th. But, as we had enrollment in the virtual academy eclipse anything we could have possibly thought was going to happen based on our initial surveys, it actually has taken us a little bit more time to prepare for that. There's some other reasons also, which I can explain here in a moment. But so some things in the new calendar: graduation is still June 5th. Kids are still done June 4th. We're able to put all that in there in the calendar, even though we're pushing school back forward 4 days. We're going to start on a Tuesday. Now we're starting the next Monday. In addition, we really have taken out anything in the calendar that was a non-instructional day. So we have 183 student days. A lot of times we'll use what's called an Act 80 day. An Act 80 day is a day that the district can use for professional development for teachers that's in lieu of a student day. We've removed those from the calendar. So we have 183 days designated to instruction in our calendar between the start date on August 31st and the last day of school on June 4th. And we have loaded a lot of that in the spring as well, in the hopes that we'll be able to get back to more normal instruction at that time. So the district does have all those things in play here as part of this calendar update. Some reasons for the change: obviously the virtual academy staffing that I'll explain here. We also are making an adaptation to the AB schedule. So we have really changed. We were planning on having students in the middle school and the high school come on Monday and Wednesday, or Tuesday and Thursday. But in really looking at the safety of that and really thinking through what we might need to do if there is a case of COVID-19, we've made an adaptation. And so now students, if they're in our Group A, so students with last names A to K will be in Group A. Those students will come to school on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday will be the day off, where we will go through and fully clean the buildings, sanitize them, all those kinds of things. And then other students, the B students who have last names L to Z, will come to school on Thursday and Friday. And that's for grades 6 to 12. Our elementary plan is still to bring all students who sign up for face-to-face instruction to school 5 days a week. So just trying to make all that work and making some of those changes. We'd like to give our teachers another week to think through what that does instructionally for what they were planning. Finalizing transportation, I am definitely going to owe people down in the transportation department some cake, maybe a gift. I don't know. There's been a lot of changes to our plans, and they have continued to work with them, but to try and make sure that all of our transportation schedules are worked out, especially with what we're doing with double elementary runs. Since we're only picking up half the kids now for the middle school and the high school, making sure we have the right stops for those students based on their last names. There's just a lot of moving parts there, but they're making a great effort, and I'm sure it's going to be in good shape when we start school. We have a little bit of a challenge with some of the Chromebooks we tried to purchase. So we purchased them in May, and they've not arrived yet. So we have contingency plans in place. We will be able to start school on August 31st, regardless of whether the Chromebooks come in or not. But we may have to do some things that are a little bit different than we had hoped, which was really to be able to just hand out a device right away at the beginning of the year to all students. We may have to really look out and have some surveys and things about what's needed out in the community, what students actually have available. But we will cross that bridge if we have to. Right now, we're still not sure whether we're going to have devices, some of the devices we were hoping to have for students. But we still have, thousands and thousands of devices available for kids here at school. Also, just some additional time to finalize health and safety procedures. Especially like taking temperatures in the morning, working on an app we're going to be using to try and make sure that it works well, so that parents can pre-screen their kids and actually input that in the morning before kids come to school. Just working through a couple of those logistical challenges. An extra week will really give us a lot of additional time to do that. And then we are going to use some of that time also for orientation for kids. We'd like our kindergartners, our sixth graders, our ninth graders, we'd like to provide them with some time to get into buildings, to walk their schedules. We need to set the buildings up. There will be new things in buildings. There'll be, one-way hallways, or maybe a one-way stairwell in some of our buildings. And we want to make sure that those are set up before we bring kids in to walk their schedules, so that they really can get an understanding of what school is going to look like when they get here for that first day. So the virtual enrollment, virtual academy enrollment, as I said, a lot more than we anticipated. We were thinking we were going to have about 1,200 to 1,500 students. We ended up with 25, 28 right now. So it's really a large change, and required us to rethink some things, especially at the high school for staffing. We have been able to protect the high school schedule. I know that was a major concern that a lot of our students had shared. We feel like we've been able to protect almost every course in the high school. So students, whether they're virtual, whether they're coming face-to-face, should have access to the courses that they had signed up for, and they should still be in the classrooms with teachers that they had signed up for. So that was a big challenge for us, but we think we were able to accomplish it, and I'll provide you with some additional information about that as we go through the presentation. Lots of elementary kids, almost 40% of some grade levels are opting into the virtual academy. That was also another thing we wanted to make sure that we had, very rigorous instruction in reading and in math at those younger grade levels, because those developmental skills that kids are learning in those grade levels, we just can't let them fall behind. So we really have, I think, put together a very nice product for students who are in the virtual academy, and as well as the kids who are coming face-to-face. So there's a whole separate presentation for virtual academy students that is also being sent out today. I'm not going to get into all the logistics of that in this presentation, because it by itself is about 12 to 13 minutes. There also is going to be a new site on the Cumberland Valley website that really goes through all the health and safety protocols that we're doing as a school district. Allows you to see what would happen if there's a case of COVID-19. What would the district do? How does the district handle a student who may be symptomatic? How does the district handle a staff member who may be symptomatic? What are the other things that we're doing to really ensure that health and safety is a paramount thing for us this fall? And so we're developing that. That will also be released along with this video. So elementary school opening plans. Well, K-5 kids should plan on coming to school on August 31st, all of them. So any kids that are in the face-to-face program should plan on being at school that day. That's going to be our first day of school. There will be some building-specific new child drop-off procedures. One of the concerns we have right now is just the amount of car queuing we're going to have at certain locations. Some buildings have plenty of room for car queuing, some do not. We know a lot of parents are planning to drive students. To get a better handle on that, we will be sending out a survey about people's plans for transportation this fall, so we have a little bit better understanding. But buses are going to be loaded, I think, at a very reasonable rate right now. We're probably loading buses at somewhere around 30 to 50%. So I think that bus transportation, especially with every student wearing a face covering on the bus, I think is going to be a viable option for a lot of our families as well. So the middle and high school schedule, as I briefly described, we're on an AA, off on Wednesday, BB schedule now. And that is different than we previously sent out there, but I think it does a lot for safety for our students, and I think instructionally it actually might make some more sense too. There are definitely some benefits to kids coming every other day for live instruction, and we're still able to manage that a little bit at the high school with what we're doing with remote instruction as part of the day. But at the middle school, we really weren't able to do that, and we really wanted to protect making sure that families were on the same schedule. Like, if your last name is A to K and you have a middle school student and you have a high school student, they go to school Monday and Tuesday, and everybody in the family does that. So, trying to make sure that was protected was also part of our planning process. So once again, rationale, we think it really reduces the likelihood of spread of COVID-19, especially from cohort to cohort. And, the other thing that we were really working through was a contact tracing protocol. So if we do have a case of COVID-19, let's say there's a case of COVID-19, a high school student is identified and they're in group A, and we find out on Tuesday that this student actually is testing positive for COVID-19. What the district will do at that point is we will close the building for 24 to 48 hours. We're going to bring in a third-party cleaning crew. They're going to clean the building. They're going to disinfect any areas where that student might have been, really a deep cleaning. In our previous plans, that would have affected the other cohorts. So now the B students are actually losing a day of instruction. In this plan, it does not. We believe we'll be able to get school back open by Thursday morning for those students, and there's not a lot of mingling between the groups. So by making this determination, we think it does provide us with a safer opening. Really, a lot of this came out of town hall meetings we held with faculty members and trying to address concerns that they had about coming back to work. So, we think this does provide us with a safer option, and it's going to be better for our kids and really provide less disruption should there be some cases of COVID-19 that do occur. I think that's possible at the high school. I mean, we definitely have community spread right now. We know during the summer we've had high school students that have had it. It's certainly possible in any building with this pandemic, but we really are trying to manage what would happen if that occurs in such a way that it really is less disruptive to our kids. So the middle school schedule and the way that it works instructionally is that students who have last names A to K, so those kids who have those last names will come to school on Monday and Tuesday, and they will go through their entire schedule, and they will do that live with their teacher. Obviously, they're face-to-face. So middle school students, last names A to K, will go through their whole schedule, and they'll have all their classes at school. Now, I want you to remember that they're going to have their classes in small groups. So probably around 15 students per class, which is a big difference than what we normally have. We had a lot of middle school sections last year that were over 30. So those students will get those classes, and then they'll do asynchronous content the rest of the week. Now, I think people hear asynchronous content and they think assignments, like it's just going to have an assignment to do. And we're not telling our teachers that's really what we're looking for. There may be some of that, but we're also saying we need to try and figure out how we embed the instruction that kids need right into the course, into what they're doing, whether that's through a video or whether that's through some new content that the district actually got this summer, really to try and help do that and make a more robust academic environment for those kids when they're at home. So these students would have live instruction 2 days, and they have their 3 days of asynchronous content. They also have the opportunity to check in with the teacher. The teacher has an opportunity to check in on them if they're not getting their work done, to ask them questions, to do those kinds of things on Wednesdays. Then these students come to school. So the B students, last names L to Z, come to school here on Thursday. Well, these students were saying you should do your content that these kids did on Monday, Tuesday, and that way we just keep these kids. These kids are like 3 days behind, but we'll just have to deal with that at the end of the marking period, whether that means these kids have a couple extra days at the end of the marking period to get the work done that they need to get done. Whatever that happens, we'll make that work. But that way, the teacher really is really trying to develop 5 good lessons a week, 2 face-to-face and 3 asynchronous, and then they have this next group that's doing the same thing. So by making that work, we allow our teachers to really not lose their minds in this schedule, because I think it could be really challenging if we didn't do something that made sense instructionally. And if it doesn't make sense for them, the teaching staff, it's going to be a lot harder for the kids. So that's kind of how we thought through this program. And really then also, how do we leverage some of this time on Wednesday to try and check in with kids, to do some tutoring if we need to make sure that all of our students are continuing their progress that we expect them to continue this year. So one of the things we've said to our teachers is that face-to-face time, when they're at school, that time needs to be protected. It's for interaction, it's for instruction, it's for collaboration, which we can do even while we're social distancing. I really believe that. It's not for taking tests. So we really want our teachers to rethink that and say, the assessments I give this year, if I give them during that time the kids are at home, it's okay. If the kids need to use their book this year, it's okay. If the kids need to use their laptop this year, to help them with those assessments, it's okay. It's not a fair situation to kids. This isn't a regular year for them. We can't hold them to the exact same expectations we normally do. And so I think it's a great use of an asynchronous day if we're giving that test when the kid's at home. And that's what we explain to our teachers. We want that time at school to be really protected for instruction. That's really our goal. The high school schedule is really something. So it really caused us more challenges than at any other level. And we knew that going in, it was going to be complicated, but it was a lot more complicated than we thought. At the elementary school and at the middle school, students in the virtual academy are actually being instructed by teachers who are 100% virtual. So we've actually taken those teachers completely out of their schedules, and they're just teaching kids in the virtual academy. We cannot make that work at the high school without completely breaking the schedule. We had 500 students, 500 or more students who actually are taking more than 350 different courses. So it would have broken the schedule for the virtual academy kids. It would have broken the schedule for the kids who came face-to-face. So the way we figured that out is we said, if kids come half a day, if they only come from 7:20 to 11:25, that gives us the entire afternoon for teachers to teach remotely. So teachers teach students who are in front of them face-to-face in the morning, and in the afternoon they teach students who are remote. And that allowed us to put the virtual academy students into all of these afternoon classes, and allowed us to protect the entire schedule and protect all of the courses that kids wanted to take. So there are some trade-offs. Obviously, it's less time in school, but the students still have the same amount of live instruction. Just some of it is actually remote, because students also who come to school will have days where they actually get live remote instruction at the high school. So we were able to make it work using those trade-offs. I know that may not be ideal for some students, but it really allowed us to protect the entire schedule, and it gives us a path back out. So if at some point we're able to go back to a full day of instruction where we have a 9-period day, let's say there is a vaccine here in the spring, and we're able to come back fully to the high school, I think it gives us a real good option to actually come back and finish the school year strongly. So we also wanted to create a schedule that allowed us to keep the regular schedule intact, and there really was no other way to do that. So we protected the schedule. The other thing we did is, by not serving lunches, we really took out a lot of risk at the high school. So, we removed a huge risk point for us, which was kids were going to have to be coming into the cafeteria, 300 to 400 students every lunch period. There's going to be a lot of mingling. There are going to be all these things that are going to be very difficult. And so we said to take that risk out is also a really important thing that we need to do. So if you're interested in really seeing the whole high school schedule conversation, that's a separate video that you can watch. Once again, we've told teachers at the high school, this is not a time for assessments when kids are in school. You can't be giving tests to kids. You're only seeing them once a week in your class. You absolutely cannot just use that time to give them tests. Give them tests when they're at home. Give them tests when they're not receiving live instruction. That's a great asynchronous day. Here's the exam. Here's the open book. That's a great day for you to do that. Wednesdays, once again, we're saying teachers, you need to check in. You need to work with kids. If there are questions, if they're not getting work done, that's when we need to get after them and say, hey, what's going on? Are you all right? And work through that with them. If students receive breakfast, they certainly can still have that, and we'll allow the cafeteria to be open for that. It's really not that many kids. We can really space them out. It's something we can manage. So there have been a lot of questions about bell times as well. We want to make sure that this is out there. This is also an email that came out with this video. But you say, well, what happened to the times? Kids are not at school as long as they used to be. And the answer to that is yes, you're right, they aren't. And there's some real reasons for that. Number one, it's going to take us about 10 minutes between bus runs every time a bus makes a run to clean the bus. So we lose an hour a day of possible transportation time. We're using the earliest drop-off time I feel really comfortable with is 7:25 in the morning, which is still very early for our kids. And our latest time is still 4 p.m. when kids leave a building. So, I think we did have to compress some things that we may not have wanted to in our schedules a little bit, but, transportation really required that we do that. At the high school, I do want to call out that students are there 2 days a week. They still are there for 3 hours and 40 minutes when they're actually in school, and then they get an additional 2 hours and 50 minutes of live remote instruction every week, actually 2 times a week. So it's a pretty comparable amount of live instruction that students are getting at the high school to what they're getting at other levels that we have here in the school district. One big change is the elementary bell time. So certain elementary schools will be coming in at 8:30, and other ones are not going to come in until 9:20. And that's because we're using all of our elementary buses to make 2 different loops. So they're doing this loop first, they're cleaning the bus, then they're doing this loop. And that's why we have that split between those times. And that split between those times at the end of the day. So these are the bell schedules that we will be running with this year. And this is the bell schedule for these schools that we'll be running with this year as well. It's a little wild and crazy. I'm sure there are challenges for all families with the plans we're putting out. I know it's different than what we would have done any other school year. It really is. But, safety has got to be a major priority. We are able to do a lot of social distancing. We are able to provide a lot more safety with this plan. And we have great people here who are going to make it work. That's the thing that I think everyone knows about Cumberland Valley is we will make it work for our students. And we're going to continue to be with them and work with them in ways that are very different than we were able to do in the spring. Even though it's not the same as a normal school year, it's going to be more the same than not. And we really look forward to working with our kids, getting them into a routine, getting them back into a schedule, and hopefully having a plan in place that really minimizes disruption, which was our goal. So we appreciate all your support. This district is a great district because of the people who work here, but it's also a great district because of the people who live here. And it's going to be a wonderful school year, I think, for our kids, even though it's going to be challenging. We are going to try and make it a wonderful school year for them no matter what. I'll see you in the air because we are the Eagles of Cumberland Valley. Take care.